Sharing today, there's 13 principles of Torah. It's actually said in the morning brachos, the morning blessings for Jewish people who use a prayer book. So Rabbi Yishmael says the Torah is expounded on by means of 13 rules. 1, a conclusion drawn from a minor premise or more lenient condition to a major or more strict one, and vice versa. 2, an analogy between two laws established on the basis of identical expressions in the biblical text. The biblical text is like the source text. 3, a general principle derived from one biblical text or from two related biblical texts is applicable to all similar cases, though not specified in the details. 4, when a general rule is followed by an explicit particular, the rule is limited to that specific particular. 5, when a specification is followed by a general rule, all that's contained in the general rule applies. 6, when a general rule is followed by a specification, and then again by a general rule, the law is applicable only to such cases which are similar to the specification. 7, when a general rule requires an explicit specification, for the sake of clarity, the general rule isn't limited to the specific particular, as in Rule 4. Rule 4, as a reminder, is when a general rule is followed by an explicit particular, the rule is limited to that specific particular. Here we say number 7, when a general rule requires an explicit specification, just for the sake of clarity, it's not limited only to that particular. The particular there is just to clarify. 8, when a particular case included in a general law is singled out to instruct us concerning something new, it is singled out not only to teach concerning its own case, but to be applied to the whole of the general law. 9, when a particular case that's included in a general law is singled out to, in order to lessen but not to increase the severity of that provision. I'm going to read that one again. When a particular case that is singled out, that is included in a general law, so let's say there's a general law, there's a particular case that's singled out, so to lessen but not to increase the severity of that provision. So it's in order that it's less severe, and lessened, less severe. 10, when a particular case that's included in a general law is singled out to add another provision, which is unlike the general provision, it is singled out in order in some aspects to lessen and in others to add to the severity of the provision. So you have a general law, then you give a case. The case is singled out. It's in order to lessen and not make more severe. However, when a particular case is included in a general law and singled out to add another provision, unlike the general provision, there it could be in order to make less or more severe. 11, when a particular case is included in a general law singled out with a new stipulation, the provisions of the general law no longer apply to it, unless the Torah explicitly states that they do. 12, because Torah is a book of law. That's my main point today. 12, the meaning of a passage may be deduced from its context or from a subsequent passage. 13, similarly, when two biblical passages contradict each other, the meaning can be determined by a third biblical text which reconciles them. And I am sharing about from Sarah Brassard, the amygdala for inner healing. The amygdala keeps the activation residues. Basically, when we learn Torah, we're afraid. The severity here means, did you follow the law or did you not? So that's why I'm moving into the inner healing. And so the amygdala keeps the activation residues and the threat, the incoming threat or the outgoing imprints of agitation highly aroused. This results in chronic insecurity. What are some ways that we can inner heal? So first of all, I actually spoke about this with someone yesterday. The action plan can be better than a to-do list, right? Because to-do list, we're not okay if we don't follow it. Action plan is this is the plan. Alertness in many shades versus all or nothing. We start to recognize we can have a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Foundational practices and techniques, and also most important, not needing to boss others around. Instead, finding what feels good and hold in there. Some triggers to know that I'm having a breakthrough, for me, is when there feels like too much space. I feel like the astrological coldness. I feel very indecisive and wishy-washy. Over-talking, looking for distraction, feeling too serious, isolating from people, repressing pleasures, avoiding needs and desires, cravings like comfort food, what I remember from childhood, like meat, over or under eating. The day flies away, I feel unproductive. And a therapist with a holistic perspective is to create a life of authentic meaning and purpose. So this is including to enjoy life now, empowered. And by the way, I'm not saying this is from my own therapist. I'm saying this from Sarah Brassard. Empowered to find and stay on the path of healing and happiness, and learning to self-trust for peace, escaping isolation to create healthy connection and the life that one might dream of, and getting past the betrayal and finding trust. This is healthy for health, for work, or for relationships. Feeling the loyalty and rediscovering pleasure, the lost loves, and the people who stand by in thick and thin. So feeling loyalty toward ourselves, the things we never got to continue, the lost loves, but also toward the people who are standing by us, cutting through the external guidance to that inner guru and building resilience through self-care, committing wholeheartedly to transformation rather than playing small, getting out of stopping-starting cycles, clearing the past and awakening the bridge between the brain and soul, knowing when to expose and then using like a dimmer switch to protect. Like, are we protecting or are we exposing? Plant-based recovery protocols. I used that on my journey, on the way. Living in destiny rather than the forcing of what I'm supposed to do. Turning sensitivity from the survival to a superpower, and recognizing that authenticity and acceptance for the source of addiction. Like, when we release that regret and get that limitless motivation for now and for the future, it's because we are in that emotional environmental detox. And that's like when people say they're detoxing from heavy metals. We have heavy things that can come from the people and environments we're in. So, for example, we have to identify and help someone before the spiral, lifting up others too in our conversations, but starting with our own self-care. We could use silence of living to root out trauma, to see what are we trying to fill the space, what are we not okay with, but also like that source of addiction, that we just want to be ourselves and we want to be accepted. When we're going to that known feelings, even if they're not helpful, it can cause us to self-sabotage. We want to stop that and understand how these hardships impact the brain, how it strengthens when we address the hardships, but it hurts the brain when we avoid it. And we can navigate the normative, the typical, breathing into our personal healing and freedom, which at times could feel like growth can hurt. And sometimes it could feel like we are unshouldering what's not our portion. This is all about self-trust, that, and versus disempowerment. And each morning, this is a very Jewish concept of Moda'ani, we can have a revival, inspirational hope and zest for the day. We could use meditation for clarity, getting a good rest, quieting the mind, and knowing that we can make progress without crisis. We don't have to have that And when we move into functional relationships, even when it's new, we know that it's sometimes includes that mourning and that loss, which can bring that richness and fullness of life as we integrate the grief with profound honor for what we lost, for what we have to walk away from. And we can start to find gratitude as the ship in the storm that guides us out and through, finding and knowing that during the mystery of being and becoming, there's a lot unknown mystery, right? And in terms of this inner healing, we can then get a little deeper into a new kind of living. I learned a word, precovery, before the discovery. When you know, there's a precovery. So A lot of this is about pre-covering ourselves, pre-discovery, right? And I'll stop here and look forward to sharing tomorrow.